Welcome to the Stories We Must Tell. This is Dr. Christina Kishimoto, and with me today, I have an incredible guest from San Antonio, Texas. So excited to have Dr. Jaime Aquino, a dear friend, a wonderful superintendent, and a change maker nationally. So welcome, Jaime.
Thank you, Christina. Looking forward to engaging in a conversation about the state of public education. It's always good to be in your presence.
It's so much fun always to chat with you and to catch up. You and I have a long history. I know you from back in your days in New York and then in Hartford, Connecticut, and then you were in Denver. And tell us all these places you've been, and this has been an amazing journey for you. So obviously, San Antonio is not your first leadership gig that you have been leading across the nation. It's been fun. Tell us a little about that.
Yes, I've been blessed by the opportunity that I've had. I always like to say I'm living the American dream. I was born in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, did my bachelor's there, and then upon graduating, was recruited by the New York City Board of Education as a bilingual teacher and have done almost all roles in education. So I serve as an instructional superintendent in the city of New York, deputy superintendent in Hartford, CA, Chief Academic Officer in Denver, and Deputy Superintendent in LA. And now I'm totally blessed to be the teacher of teachers in San Antonio Independent School District. I don't like to use the title superintendent, and people know here they don't call me superintendent, they call me the teacher of teachers because it really showcases and highlighted what I believe the role of a superintendent should be, which is to be a teacher of teachers.
So I love that title because it completely tells us a lot about who you are, how you lead, but also how you just engage with community. You're just this person who I continue to watch on social media and in all your national interactions. You're talking to teachers, you're talking to students, you're talking to parents, you're talking community members, business leaders, board members. You're leading by leading together with all of your constituents and community members. And I love that about you.
Yeah, I think it's crucial. I mean, a school system is owned by the community and by everyone. And to transform a school district, it can not only be relying on this notion of a superhero, which doesn't exist, but there is a superhero within the community. The community needs to elevate the role of public education, not only for our future generation, but for both the stability, the economic and political stability of the city and our country.
So the superhero, that's a good thing to watch where you're sitting on your couch for a weekend, kind of get out of reality. But the fact is, though, Jaime, we both know how much leadership matters and how you choose to lead in San Antonio, how you embrace community and the voices that you elevate really matters. And so I want to dig in a little bit on the incredible work that you're doing around lifting student voice and student agency with this thing called the Children's Cabinet. And so I'd love for you to talk a little bit about why a children's cabinet, why that so early in your administration, and what's happening with this.
So, as we started this conversation, I told you that I've served as deputy superintendent in four districts. And one of the things that I've noticed, particularly in an urban district, which is where I have served, that the reform in urban school district looks like you get a new superintendent or a new board, and then the new superintendent, the new board want to change totally everything, and everything from the previous administration is discarded. And then the cycle begins because, as you know, the tenure of an urban superintendent is about 3 years. So after every 3 years, it's a new beginning, and then it impacts the stability of what happens in our campuses. So when I got here a little over 2 years ago, I said, you know, I want to do a children's cabinet. And people talk to me here and told me, but you know, some of the city and the mayor's the one who should have a children's cabinet. I said, you know, I want to control this. I want to control this because I want to make sure that it's impactful for my students and my community. So the purpose of having a children's cabinet was to ensure continuity. So we wanted to make sure that when we had a board election, or if something happens to me, that the community, the city has embraced our agenda. So that when there's an election, so for example, I have an election next May. So my expectation is that people are going to start, as a result of the children cabinet, asking the candidates, what do you support the always learning, which is our strategic management plan? Do you support the direction of the district so that they can make better informed decisions to ensure stability and continuity? And also that if a new superintendent comes, that the work that we have done is embedded within the system, that nobody will be happy. Like, no, 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 that's not how we do things in San Antonio ISD. We want to do it this way, because we owe it to our students to provide a stable district that would support them. So in the children's cabinet, I have represented, we have like 100 people from all walks of life, from the mayor's office to our county office, elected official, business leader, parent, student, teacher, principal, everything there. And it has been incredibly productive in stabilizing our district.
So it's been a lot of fun. I thank you for inviting me to sit in on these meetings and participate as a colleague, a former superintendent. I am just so impressed that as the cabinet comes together periodically on a monthly basis and is sharing information, the way you bring in the different voices. And all of those constituent groups you mentioned all have a voice. And so sometimes you're asking, hey, we have teachers in the room, tell us about your perspective on this, or we have a business leader, or we have an elected official. And that's really powerful because it really showcases, right, the way in which you're bringing in that shared governance, that collective leadership mindset. But I love those times when you say, well, let's just ask the students, our student leaders are here. And so you turn to them continuously, but you've also had them do some work on the side. So talk about some of the ways in which you've elevated student voice and student agency within and also beyond the cabinet.
But before I do that, I want to make sure, because you just reminded me, yes, you're a member of the Children's Cabinet, that we have 75% of the members of the Children's Cabinet are local from San Antonio, some from Texas. So I have people from Austin coming to our Children's Cabinet, and then 25% are national leaders like yourself from across the country. That was very strategic because sometimes we become very insular. And I wanted to make sure that we had national promising, the best in the nation like you, pushing our thinking so that we can elevate the work to unprecedented heights. And to your question on the work that we've done to elevate student agency, that's the cornerstone of my administration and of this district. My first meeting when I had after I was appointed, which was May 3rd, was a budget workshop, a 6-hour budget workshop. And I began, you probably know the story of the African tribe, the Maasai, and how are the children. So, which is this African tribe that are known for being the most fearsome warriors, right? And the way they greet them was Kanseria Ngeri, which in Swahili means, and how are the children? Even those that don't have children always ask that question. And their answer is, the children are well. So I started by my first day of the job by sharing that story in a public meeting in the budget workshop to highlight that our focus here is about our children. So if our focus is on the children, we need to give them the agency and the voices to be seated around the table when we make this decisions. And I totally revamped the superintendent's student advisory council. So it used to be the superintendent would come and lead it. And I said, no, this is not going to happen. This is your council. I'm a guest here. So you set the agenda and you decide what topics you want and what supporting questions you have. So it was completely revamped, and it was made really powerful because they brought the issues that mattered the most to them. The first year, they selected two topics that they wanted to advise the board and me on changes that they wanted to see on mental health and school safety, which is a sad state of affair, Christina, when our students, you probably not remember that when we were at school, we would talk about what's being served for lunch, but our students were concerned about their mental health and the mental health of their staff, and whether when they walked into our schools, whether they were going to return home alive. So, and they gave us incredible ideas. Then last year, we took this to another level. We have the state of the district, which the teacher of teachers superintendent gets up and tell how well we're doing or not. And I said, you know what? And it came from one of the students. He said to me, why don't we do a state of the district from the student perspective? So we had our state of the district completely led by our students. And as you said, they even did focus group and survey, but interview about 800 of their peers across the district, asking them focused questions on what they thought the state of the district. And then they share it with the entire community. They've made significant impact because I think you heard of the last children's cabinet when one of our students said, we're really proud that we're making a difference because as a result, the board and the superintendent increased by almost $4 billion the budget for mental health because they heard from us. I'm also really proud is that we have represented our stakeholder with different perspective, and we disagree, but we are modeling how to engage in civil discourse. And I think that is crucial because of the time that we're living. And even though we have disagreement, we have made a norm that we need to model what we want our students to do so that that next generation, when they take their leadership position, they will know that the fact that you might be from a political persuasion different than mine doesn't mean that I should not respect you and treat you like a human being. So very proud of that.
Yeah, I love that. Love the way you are bringing in these democratic principles of learning how to use your voice, how to do it respectfully, listening to multiple perspectives. I mean, that's really powerful, and you can see it in the children's cabinet. I get the pleasure of being able to kind of look into that and see that. But the fact is that our nation's students, our young people, are really changing in terms of their mindset, how they see the world. It's different from us. Also, demographically, for the last 10 years, we are now a nation where the majority of our students are students of color. And this is the first time in US history that for an entire decade, we're seeing that, and we're still trending to more Hispanics, Asians, mixed race. And so we have all of these just diverse languages and ideas and concepts coming together. And that is the beauty of the United States. And so how do you keep yourself as a superintendent fresh in terms of checking yourself so that your concepts of what equity meant to you growing up, right? What it meant to have voice, that it may look different. And you gave a great example, with students saying mental health is what we're thinking about, right? So how do you keep yourself thinking about, okay, I need to check in with the young people to see how they're seeing this differently from how we as the adults are seeing things?
Yeah, and first, one of the ways is being present and accessible to our students and the community. So it's hard to believe that people don't believe me when I say that I am painfully shy. So people don't believe it, but I am. And prior to coming to this role, I did not have a big social media presence, and I was intentional in trying to have this. First, for a couple of reasons. I wanted to model that if you're a superintendent or a teacher of teachers, you can still focus on what matters the most, which is what's happening in the classroom for our students. The second one, I wanted to reach our students. So I have a big presence on TikTok, and that was strategic. And it has been transformational because every time I walk to a school, the students come to me and say, we know you, we know you. It's like, how do you know me? Oh, TikTok, TikTok. And then it makes them feel much more comfortable to express their opinions to me. So I seek out their voices. I ask them, in addition to the student advisory council, every single committee. We have tons of councils and committee. We have students at the table giving us their perspective. But in the issue of the changing demographic that that you mentioned, this is really important. I'm going to be totally transparent for San Antonio ISD um, because we are a community within the state of Texas, where some of my students feel that the state sends daily messages that because of who they are, they're not worth it. So this notion of equity is extremely important. And, I am not, people say you're an equity champion. I don't consider myself that. I've lived my entire life with one principle, to promote a love for humanity. I am a member of so many rings of culture. I'm an immigrant that came to this country as an adult. I'm an English learner still trying to master English. I am not any immigrant. I'm an immigrant of color. And I am a gay man. So I know what it means to be subjected to discrimination on all my rings of culture. And it was my first time. You probably know this because you know me for a long time, Christina. I've never hidden who I am or who I choose to love. But I also never publicly said I'm gay because I felt like, why should I until straight people feel I have to declare that I'm straight? So I said, why should I do that? But the day I was appointed in the board meeting, my story, what I share with my leadership, my personal story. And I share all that. And I was strategic. It was intentional because I wanted every single student in San Antonio ISD to see themselves in me and that they know that they are valued and belong. I like to say that I am San Antonio ISD. I share the same stories and struggles of my students, whether they're immigrant, emergent bilingual, LGBTQ, a person of color. So it was strategic, which, going to your question, has allowed students to open up about their own struggle with me personally. And I have a collection of stories to try to inspire people, but mostly our elected official, to do what's right for our students.
there's so many things and so many perspectives the students are being introduced to at this point in history, and giving them voice to say, how do you feel about all that's happening? What do you think? How are you engaging in voice and vote? Is so important to making sure that those democratic or those principles of democracy continue in this nation, even with the changing demographics of who our kids are and who our next level voters are as they age into this voting power and voting empowerment that they have. And so I think in everything you're doing, you're providing that space for them to have that agency that's going to carry them into adulthood as our own nation grows. And so, to what extent are you feeling like students are, in fact, feeling that they can speak freely from whatever perspective in the San Antonio ISD?
Um, well, um, if we were trying to stifle them or prevent them from speaking, we will not be very successful. So I am blessed to have uh, our students be strong leaders and are not afraid of using their voices uh, to make their points across. Both their our students here in San Antonio have a passion for social justice that is incredible. So we have had schools where they took students, led by student, took a position around the war in the Middle East, and we encourage that. Like you, as long as you're using your voice peacefully, you should be elevating what you feel should be happening. And so we encourage that, and our students are having their positions being made again in a very respectful, because we have students that represent very diverse opinion, including political opinions, but they have shown um, civility and respect to each other without attacking each other. So very encouraged with that. I will tell you, like you said, we're seeing history in the making with this election, having the first woman of color. So it's incredible to hear just in my community the positions like, is this country ready to elect a woman of color? And you hear some students, I'm like, well, wait a minute. Why not? Why has it taken so long? So long. So they are really involved. They are monitoring this election. And what we do in the district, in my district, regardless of what the national discourse is around school, we don't indoctrinate our students. If we indoctrinate our students, is by developing their critical thinking. We want them to indoctrinate to be critical thinking so that they can make informed decisions. And so that's our mission, so that they can have a voice. And it is difficult. It's a difficult time to be a teacher in our country. Like when I was a teacher, teaching current events was not something controversial. Now, if you go and talk about, oh, but then you're supporting this, or you're talking about race, and like you're indoctrinating, which is a shame. It's a shame, because what we do is present the different opinions and let our students make. It's about time that we trust our students and trust their judgment and their leader. Actually, if we were to do that, our country and the world will be in a better place.
Dr. Jaime Aquino, I love ending on that note. It's time for us to trust our students at another level of readiness to be engaging in sharing of their voice, their perspective, being at the decision-making table. Thank you so much for sharing not only about San Antonio, the students, the work that you're doing, but also a little bit of your personal story, which is always powerful when willing to open up and share of ourselves. And so thank you so much for your leadership and for loving on our nation's students and embracing all that they are and who they are and how they come to the table. So thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Christina, for being the voice for equity across the country. The work that you are doing is needed.